Our favorite AA national media is committed to the bit. Let's go to Michael Katz, who's up in Milwaukee, and we'll talk about Ole Miss beating UNC, Tim Doyle's weirdness that's going on, and the Iowa State Cyclones. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Steven Willis of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be joined by Michael Katz, and he is going to talk about everything that is happening in Milwaukee. He's up in the hotel right now, getting ready for a late night game between Ole Miss and Iowa State on True TV at 6:45 Central Time tonight. So, Michael, before we get started about the UNC game, which had to be an unbelievably fun game to actually be in the building for, but Tim Doyle, Mr. Fraud himself, Mr. National Media AA media member. I mean, trying like heck to get to the show and maybe make it to CBS Sports Network. We're talking about him at this moment. He went into the tournament and said that Ole Miss was the fraud of the tournament and that Ole Miss was going to lose to either North Carolina or San Diego State, and that's just the way it is. Well, Ole Miss won the game against North Carolina. And instead of him kind of eating crow and kind of moving on, he doubles down and says, unless Ole Miss defeats a number 3 seed, that proves that they were the fraud of the tournament to begin. Michael, the commitment to the bit has to be commended.
Oh, I love it. I listen, it doesn't matter what the bit is. I'm a huge fan of just double, tripling down. I think my favorite part of it is that the calculus here that, well, maybe North Carolina was a fraud. So if a fraud beats a fraud, then you're still a fraud. It doesn't count. Yeah, I don't know. It's I think like right after the game ended, I think it seemed like he was eating crow a little bit because he, in like a kind of tongue-in-cheek way, he was like, congrats, Ole Miss. Glad I was motivation. Like a haha, it's over. And then today, I saw the clip and my man went all in. There's a lot of weird hills to die on. This is certainly one of the stranger ones.
And I'm just going to be real about this as well. Chris Beard's the type of person, when you do something like that, it's actually beneficial to Ole Miss at that point. You saw the way they came out against North Carolina. That was a pissed off Ole Miss team in that game. And North Carolina just got overwhelmed in a way that, let's see, Ole Miss was beating North Carolina at halftime by more than North Carolina has trailed in a half in an NCAA tournament game since 1967.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that second half was an insane swing, but I mean that first half that Ole Miss played was it was perfect. I mean, they were doing everything. I think that the moment where I chuckled a little bit to myself was I actually, during the press conference yesterday, I asked Chris, the benefit of having those guys who can stay cool, calm, and collected in those tough moments, and he was giving an answer, and then he sort of inserted in. I didn't see any sort of fraud out there, just like very like casual. And I was just like, I actually laughed. And I think a lot of us did. It's very subtle, but it's like anything you can give a high level coach, they'll take it. That's what they do. That's what Kirby Smart's been doing. His team was convinced they were going 7-5 a couple years ago. Well, that's what they told themselves. You know what I mean? Like, they will take anything they can to motivate, and it would not be surprising if that was something that came up.
Yeah, and they're all going to get to the shoot around today before the game, and he'll probably have more quotes in the locker all ready to go. Basically, I'm beginning to wonder if Tim Doyle is not on the payroll.
Could be an inside job.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that game. It was an absolutely wonderful game against North Carolina. Especially in the first half, to where Dre Davis, honestly, Sean Pedulla gets all the credit for the last second, or not the last second shot, but the ending shot that kind of put the game out of reach, the dagger. But Dre Davis's beginning and his 3-point shooting at the beginning allowed that lead to happen. And Michael, I don't know what it looked like in the arena, but here, North Carolina looked visibly shell-shocked in that first half.
I mean, Ole Miss they blitzed them. I mean, they hit him hard. And Dre Davis, like you said, I think he scored the first 5 points. He had like 10 of the first 13 or 15 or something. I mean, he was hitting from everywhere. I think not only that, but they just made things so hard for North Carolina's offense. I mean, all the movement, Ole Miss was just on them. Just everything looked really, really hard for North Carolina in that first half offensively. And that's a team that was averaging like 81 points a game. And then that's a pretty good offense. And again, we saw what it did in the first 4 against San Diego State. I mean, Ole Miss, if they wanted to send a message, they absolutely sent it, because you shoot 52% from the field, you hold them to 35, you hit 7 threes, you out-rebound them by double digits in the first half. I mean, it was, I think up to this point, you would probably say like the Kentucky first half, maybe somewhere in the Louisville game was like the best half. But I think, like, given the circumstances, I don't think you can say that what they did against North Carolina in the first half, the stage, all of it. I mean, that was as impressive as I've seen them look all year.
And it's amazing that we've gotten this far, but Sean Pedulla once again just proves how clutch he is, hitting what is probably the second most important shot in Ole Miss basketball history, with the first being Jason Harrison making a 3-point shot to send Ole Miss to the Sweet 16. That the only difference is basically making it to the Sweet 16 and the timing of the game. But Sean Pedulla, this is the 3rd or the 4th time this season. You can see he's living for this moment, and he has primed the pump. If he has a big game against Iowa State and Ole Miss makes it through, he becomes the story of the tournament. He becomes that guy potentially in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it seems like a lot of them happened fairly recently too. Like the Oklahoma game, he hits that huge shot. Arkansas, obviously, he hits the game winner. And then, of course, what we saw yesterday to sort of save the day when things were really spiraling out of control. I mean, that was a game where, I mean, like, North Carolina was on like a 36-16 run at one point until Pedulla's shot. I mean, they were just, when I think RJ Davis hit that layup and one with like 1:08 left to make it 2, I think we all started looking around and we were like, oh, I think we might have to change our stories completely, because this, I mean, I don't think any of us saw that turning the way it did. And it's credit to North Carolina for coming out the way they did and really flipping the script. But when you have a guy like Sean, like, where it doesn't matter what he's done up to that point, he can be over. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the way his calculus on him taking the shot, on what's going through his head. I asked him, I was like, what's going through your head? He's like, absolutely nothing. He's just cool, calm, collected. He did tell me that when it came off his hand, he knew it was good, because you can feel that kind of thing. But he's just one of those guys where it doesn't matter what's happened to that point. If he shoots it, if it goes in, great. If not, so be it. But it's not going to be because it was too big for him. And when he hit that shot yesterday, I think we all looked around, and we had talked about the cojones on that guy up to that point. But that was the moment where it was like, oof, this guy's special. I mean, this is a dude. This is a guy that you need in March.
And he knows it. That's the funny thing. If you look at his reaction after that shot, he knows exactly what he is, which means, and Ole Miss fans should really enjoy this, this is like proto Marshall Henderson coming out of him at this right time.
Yeah, no, in this time of year, you think about when the chips are down, who is the guy who's going to bail you out? And not every team has a guy like that. Sean Pedulla has been that guy for them, and in the biggest moment of his life, he did it again. I mean, what a shot! I mean, like, if you watch the replay, you can see him sort of like he gets the pass from Jamin, and he kind of curls around a little bit, and he stops for a second, and then he's just like, nope, we're gonna shoot it. And the defender was trying to fight around the screen, and he made a really nice reach. But man, just sometimes you just need a dude, and Sean Pedulla is that dude.
All right, thanks again for watching the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. When we come back, we will turn our attention to the Iowa State Cyclones game tonight. We'll see exactly how that goes. But first, I do want to say, daylight savings, it snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has got your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little extra boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament like most of us, or squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up watching all of the tournament action, the Oklahoma-UConn game, Michigan State Bryant, all of that on Friday. I was up, and 5 Hour Energy helps me get through the day. I've got a couple of shows to do today to get ready for tonight's game. Whether I'm at the game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and helps me keep me refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and pink mango, peach mango, and you can even build your own 12 or 24 pack delivered right to your door. But if you need one now, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. So stock up and stay energized. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments like a round of 32 game in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets should not be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in. They make it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups that are coming up in the NCAA tournament. The lowest price guarantee or the Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. With seat views before you buy, there's no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. That is LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's go back to Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. Michael, did you get a chance to see the Iowa State game before the Ole Miss game yesterday? Okay,
Yep.
I saw a little bit of that game on TV, and I was like, okay, how do you determine how Ole Miss is going to match up against that team? Because Lipscomb played such a weird style that there's almost no way that you can take from Iowa State's defensive work against what Lipscomb did. Somehow they were playing 6-out offense. There was nobody near the basket. And with the trees that Iowa State has, it just turned into a game of horse from time to time. And if you're not making 3-point shots, all of a sudden Iowa State could kind of chew you up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first half, it's hard to, you take it with a grain of salt, but like they were pretty competitive for a bit there. And then it got away from them. And then, like you said, it kind of turned into a 3-point shooting competition, and they're just not going to win that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they ended up winning by 25 or 30 or whatever it was. We have the benefit of sitting courtside for this, so you can really sort of see the size and the athleticism differences, right? Because when you're up from a distance, it's a little bit harder to gauge those sorts of things. The first thing I said, I was like, Iowa State's really big, and obviously it's a little different because Lipscomb does not have that size. I get that they were never going to win the battle of the eyeball test. But Iowa State's got some really impressive bigs that are very versatile. And I think that was my biggest takeaway from it is, obviously the level of competition was not going to really maybe provide a good tape for what Ole Miss can expect, but just sort of watching their personnel, they're big and they're versatile. And I think that makes them a really tough matchup.
Yeah. And I just looking at him and trying to put a comp to an SEC team, I think Tennessee would be the comp to Iowa State, except Iowa State is without their point guard. So this is like Tennessee without Zakai Ziegler.
Yeah, I really like that comparison. There are a lot of similarities there.
Mm.
And I know, yeah, they are without their point guard. That's tough. They still got a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, they're
guards.
good.
Obviously, missing your point guard, that's brutal this time of year. And of course, yesterday maybe not the best indicator of how they're going to be without their point guard. But it's those bigs, man. And we've seen this this year. The bigs are what give Ole Miss trouble from time to time. Now obviously, this is a little bit different style of big than those trees who just hang out down low. I mean, Iowa State's bigs can kind of move all around, but I think you mentioned it before the North Carolina game. Like when it's a guard dominant game, Ole Miss is in really good shape because they can guard guards as well as anybody. It's when you got bigs is when things start to get a little more interesting, and I think that's the challenge that this is going to present. I'm really curious to see how Iowa State or how Ole Miss deals with those bigs.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I think Ole Miss forces a turnover on other teams like 21% of the time. They're behind Iowa State. Iowa State is really proficient at turning you over. They play defense. Stylistically, there's a lot of similarity between Iowa State's coach, I can't pronounce his last name at the moment, but and him and Chris Beard, the way they play. These Chris Beard and him have had run-ins in the Big 12 conference in the past. This should be an interesting matchup because if you look back when he was at Texas, he went up to Iowa State, got beat, but he came back to Austin and won the game by 25. And that lets you kind of know that this game could be feast or famine and is probably going to hinge on three-point shooting by Iowa State. If they do not shoot the ball well from the outside, Ole Miss is likely, I think, going to win this game.
Yeah, it is interesting the Big 12 history that these two have. These are guys who are very familiar with how each coaches and the sort of teams they put together. And I think the same thing too is if Ole Miss needs to hit threes too, because when they hit threes, man, they again, like we saw in that first half yesterday, when they can do everything on offense, when there's no obvious hole in what they're doing, they're tough because they guard so well too for the most part. And when they're hitting shots, it almost seems like they're guarding a little bit harder. You know what I mean? Like I feel like when you see baskets going, it just makes everything, the vibe all feel a little bit better. And then when the defense is going well, the offense goes great. So I think 3-point shooting on both sides is going to be really important.
Yeah, I think one of the keys in this game will be Dre Davis, like always. But if you notice in that North Carolina game, Ole Miss started to become stagnant offensively, even though it was the first half when he went out with the foul trouble. He is the X factor that kind of makes that offense potentially go from good to great whenever he's hitting shots. But fouls are what wrecks him. He got into foul trouble against Auburn, maybe in all 3 times, but at least in 2 of them. And other teams have been able, whenever Ole Miss loses games that they were fairly close in, if you look at it, Dre Davis probably had foul trouble and got off the court. So if Dre Davis can guard well, not foul, and have his offense going, Ole Miss is going to be in really good shape, I think, tonight.
I agree, and I think they need Malik Dia to hold his ground down low. They need him to be. I mean, he was a bully against North Carolina a lot of times. He was the best kid on the floor. There's no question.
Yeah, there was nothing North Carolina could do with him whenever he just got his mindset that he was going to go in.
Yes, and he's so gifted around the rim too. I don't think we give enough credit for his ability to finish. He's just a really talented guy. When he's a bully, he's hard to stop. I think they need that aggressive version of him as well against Iowa State, and somebody who's going to hold his ground against those bigs. Because if it's not him, who else is going to do it for Ole Miss? It might be kind of tough. I think Dia needs to be really strong down low as well.
Is Michael Brown-Jones in Milwaukee?
I did not see him yesterday. Not in the locker room. I don't think I saw him on the bench either.
Okay. Because obviously in a game like this, it would be a little bit more tricky. It's weird that you're playing against North Carolina and North Carolina has a deficiency on the front court. That Ole Miss this year obviously won that front court battle against North Carolina. That's so weird.
It is very weird when you think about the storied tradition of North Carolina and all the great bigs they've had. Even I'm thinking, wasn't Armando Bacot there like last year? And he was there for 15 years, and he was one of the better bigs in the country, and obviously he's gone, and they just never really got anybody to replace him. It is weird to see North Carolina have such a glaring deficiency, because if you figured any program could find a good piece, it would be them or Kansas or, those sorts of blue bloods. But that was a big problem for them yesterday, and we saw it. And Malik Dia, when he wanted to, he was an absolute bruiser down there, and I think that's huge.
All right, so how do you think this game is going to go, and what is kind of your prediction on it?
I mean, I'm gonna dive into it a little bit more today, but as you hate to count Chris Beard teams out, because he has done this so many times, and he can win all different sorts of games. And again, he's done that at every stop. I just think that the matchup with Iowa State and those bigs is really, really tough. And again, like we've talked about, big men have given Ole Miss problems this year. And maybe there's a way that, again, if anybody's going to game plan around it, it's someone like Chris Beard, who is again, he's one of the best coaches in the country. But I just think I think it's a tough matchup personnel wise, and who knows how that happened, how that manifests itself during the game. Again, maybe the game plan works out in Ole Miss's favor, but I think personnel wise, it's a really tough matchup. Am I counting them out? Absolutely not, because this is an Ole Miss team that knows how to win close games. And it just genuinely seems like a group that doesn't want this run to end. You've got so many veteran players who are playing potentially their last college games. They're enjoying this ride. Guys like Morrell and Brakefield, who have experienced such awful seasons at Ole Miss, they don't want this thing to end. This is the first time they've ever gotten to be a part of this thing. You can tell they want this thing to keep going, and I do think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, and if you want to, I mentioned the Tennessee comp, and go back to look at the way that Ole Miss kind of took that game over in the second half. It was by going small against a big lineup and just letting Jamin Brakefield and those guys kind of isolate. So that's something to look forward in that game. All right, Michael, what do you got going on at the Daily Journal, and what's coming out of these games?
Yeah, so we have a press availability with both TJ Otzelberger, I believe is I believe that's the pronunciation. I remember him from his Mountain West days, because he was the coach at UNLV for a couple years, as was Chris Beard for a couple days, if I remember correctly, before he took the Texas Tech job. So both former UNLV coaches in a way. But so we're talking to both of them today. Just really curious to see. At least for me, I really want to know, at least from TJ Otzelberger's, perception, what is the hallmark of Chris Beard teams from his perspective, and does this Ole Miss team match those sorts of teams that he saw at Texas, and then vice versa? I mean, Chris talked about it a little bit last night, real briefly. Obviously, you just get this huge win, you're not necessarily thinking about Iowa State. But he's familiar. I think there's an interesting possibility for a chess match here, because they're so familiar with each other. So I'm really curious to hear from them about that, and obviously talk to players and stuff. So we got a lot of coverage from men's and women's, and obviously got to give credit to the women as well. They were dominant yesterday, and they went over Ball State. They get Baylor on Sunday, and baseball had a good day yesterday too. So it was a pretty good day for Ole Miss, and I'm doing my best to try to get as much content out there as I can.
All right, Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. He's got his hand on the pulse of Ole Miss athletics. Thank you, Michael. Enjoy Milwaukee. And how's that arena? You like that arena?
Incredible.
Really?
It is. I cannot say enough good things about the setup. It is awesome.
All right. So, Michael, we will talk to you again next week, maybe while you are trying to emergency buy tickets to Atlanta.
Well, that's a problem for future me.
Yes. All right. Take care, buddy.